August SAT is hard and it's coming up quick, but the hardest part of the August SAT is the hardest section, which is the reading section. In this video, I'm going to cover 4 strategies for the August SAT to score above a 700 on the reading section, because we all hate reading and I know you guys want to get 700 plus. So for literally years, but since I joined the SAT space as a student and then an instructor, everyone has been struggling on the reading section of the SAT. It's not new. If you're someone who's good at the reading section of the SAT, you're probably one of the biggest nerds ever. You're probably a soon-to-be author, or you're just built different. But not me personally. I honestly hated reading. So in this video, I'm going to cover exactly the strategies I use to score above a 700. I got 740 in the reading section that you guys can use to also get a 740 or even higher on your first thing. For supporting line questions, right, where it's like, hey, which choice best goes with your answer to the previous question? But those types of questions, you want to use those questions to guide yourself for the previous question. So the questions that ask you, lines 71 to 75, 64, 69. These lines are clues. These lines are insight into possible answer for the previous question. Because let's say you answer the previous question and it's like, what's the main idea of the passage, right? And you're like, dang, where in the passage should I look for to actually get this answer? You don't want to read the entire passage, right? So you're like, I wish there's a way to quickly narrow down where I have to look to get the correct answer. Boom, enters the next question, which lines support your previous answer? Because obviously one of the choices is correct, right? So if you go through each of the 4 choices for the lines and you read the lines that they give you, you'll be able to see, all right, this is where answer is found. It's these lines right here. And these lines right here correspond to this choice and from the previous question. So you're able to find out what the answer is to the initial question, right? The main question, using the next question, which asks you which lines support the previous question. So use those lines to guide you and basically help you locate information that will lead you to the correct answer for the previous question and ultimately the question about the line. That was a lot of back and forth, but hopefully you guys understand. The second tip is to annotate. All right, annotate is something that everyone should be doing. It's something that you're taught in class, and as a result, you don't want to do it because your English teachers make you, make you do it, and you're like, oh man, I hate annotating. But the truth is, annotating saves lives. It saved my life. Honestly, I used to get a 650, 660 on reading practices until I started annotating, and I actually started comprehending the text because I was annotating, and then I was able to score a 720, 730, 740 ultimately on my actual SAT. And that's something that can only be done if you begin annotating. The reason you should annotate is, one, it helps you shorten paragraphs. Okay, sometimes there's a long paragraph on the reading section. You're like, I don't want to read this over again if I need this for a future question. Let me just annotate it and turn this 10-sentence paragraph into 3 sentences so that I know exactly what's going on at this part of the text if I were to go back to it. Also, underline what makes you important information. When you're reading text, you're probably going to come across some cool facts or some main clauses, some main ideas. You want to underline them so that way when you go back and read that passage for let's say you're answering number 19 and it asks you something you don't remember, so you gotta go back to the passage. You don't want to spend your time reading 3 paragraphs just to get one answer. You want to be able to annotate, underline what's important, so you just go to straight the underlined pieces of your text, and wherever you see the underlined pieces, one of them will probably give you the answer you need for that question. So that's why underline the important information, because it'll help you in the long run, because at the end of the day, you want to limit rereads. That's the best way to get a high score in the SAT reading section, is one, preserve your time by limiting rereads, so you spend more time on the questions that are more harder, that take more time to find the answer to. And the best way to limit rereads is if you summarize the text that you just read into a way you can understand it in a much more short, condensed version, because that's the best way to save your time. The next tip, and this might sound a little weird, but is to excite yourself before reading. The reason I say this is because this is something that Sal Khan actually talked about when he first talked about SAT reading on Khan Academy. A lot of students are bored when they sit down for the SAT, right? And the SAT reading passages they're not fun. They're not about anything cool, not about LeBron James or someone cool. They're about some, John Wilkes Booth, Abraham Lincoln back in the day. So when you sit down and you look at that passage, you want to read the excerpt that the passage has beforehand, and then the title of the passage. And you want to trick your brain to absolutely being super excited, loving the fact that you're about to read this passage. Let's say it's about, Abraham Lincoln, assassinating John Wilkes Booth. You should be like, oh my God, I can't wait to read about this. I'm so excited about John Wilkes Booth and Abraham Lincoln. I love these people. You basically want to do this fakeness because it's actually going to trick your brain into actually paying attention to what you're about to read, even though in reality you probably could care less. But it will help your brain a lot and help you annotate and it'll help you comprehend the text much better. If you're excited about something, you're gonna pay more attention to it. And even if it's fake it till you make it. And if you do this, you're gonna make it. And lastly, for dual passages, okay, this is the proper order to do them. For some reason, students, what they do is they'll read both passages and then they'll answer the questions. This messes them up a lot because some of the questions are about passage 1, some passage 2, some both, and then they're all over the place. And this is why passage 1, passage 2 passages are the most missed on every single reading SAT for almost 9% of students, because they don't know exactly how to do these. Now I was able to get a perfect score on my passage 1, passage 2, which really helped me get a 740. So this is exactly what you gotta do. As you read passage 1, you want want to answer the passage 1 questions, okay? And then as you read passage 2, you want to answer the passage 2 questions. So then when you actually go through all the answer choices, because you've done reading both passages, you're only left with the questions that ask you about both passages together. Like, let's say, how will the speaker of passage 1 react to the speaker of passage 2's claims, right? These questions you can answer easily because you just finished passage 2, so both passages are fresh in your brain. Obviously, passage 1 might be a little more dimmer, but passage 2 is nice and clear, and you can quickly make connections between both passages right when you're finished reading both. Which is why you want to save the questions that, asked about both passages at the end. And the best part is, if you answer questions as you read passage 1, then you don't have to worry about passage 1 questions. And if you answer questions as you read passage 2, you don't have to worry about passage 2 questions. All you're doing is left with the 3 to 4 problems that ask about both. You quickly solve them because everything's fresh in your brain, you've comprehended everything, and boom, you can move on. So SAT reading is easy, guys. You can do it. Trust me, you get above a 700. I've helped many students get to that range. So if you do need help, be sure to check my link in the description below. That's many resources that you guys can use. Otherwise, just watch the video over and over again and implement these tricks. It's gonna help you a lot. Peace.